Now this is a picture. It's kind of funny how they just throw this in there, right? So this this picture, when we look at it, is new to the game, and it's actually the Trento, and we'll go through it. So one of the questions that always gets asked, and Gaijin is always wishy-washy about, is what is going on in the future. And this answer here from Kirill is a banger. It's an absolute banger, and it's wonderful to see we finally have confirmation of certain things coming. So the first part, what do you plan to bring in War Thunder in 2020? The answer is there will be several completely new tech trees, including Swedish ground vehicles, Chinese and Italian helicopters, and the Italian Navy. So that is 3 tech trees we're getting, 1 for Navy, 2 for helicopters, and of course the Swedish ground boys after aviation has been added. I'm sure there'll be more stuff next year, but that's already, what? That's already 4 of the updates out of 5 that you have every year? How insane is that? We already know the basics of what we're going to see next year. Like, normally we have to guess this stuff, or we have to go on rumors, or we have to go on ideas. Now they're just presenting it. Isn't it wonderful? We can even announce and show you the work-in-progress versions of several specific vehicles, like the Swedish IKV-91 self-propelled gun, the Italian Trento heavy cruiser, and the Cate class gunboat. They're not in the game yet, so these are the screenshots from our dev tools. So let's go through them. So this is the Trento. You can see it has 2 smokestacks, 1 large one, 1 small one. And the reason why this is a heavy cruiser is because it has 8 203mm on it. On top of this as well, if we have a look just at the Wikipedia article, it has 1600mm guns, 8 Vickers Tony 40mm, 8 13.2s, and 8 533 torpedoes. So it only has a belt of 70 though, and also it goes 65.9 kilometers an hour, and in service 57. So this looks very... generic is the wrong word. I wouldn't say generic, but it is looking very good for a heavy cruiser. You know, having those 8 203s, having all of those backup guns, you know, being able to have the 1600mm guns all around the thing makes it, you know, incredibly strong. Of course, it has the torpedoes as well, so this is going to be one of those high-tier Italians that we're used to. Now, this looks incredibly standard definition right now, so yeah, we'll see when it actually comes in the next year, but I'm looking forward to the Italian Navy. The next one, the IKV. Look at this beautiful machine. Oh, it's open-topped, that's an issue, but everything else looks wonderful. This just looks like your standard tank destroyer, which I'm sure will have a bit of oomph behind it because of the gun, but overall I might do a separate video on this thing itself, maybe try and bring on some of the Swedish boys to talk about this vehicle, because it's always interesting to have a look. Pytor, I'm talking to you, let's get together, let's have a chat about this, because the IKV that I know and love is this one. Which is much more modern and obviously not the same vehicle. So yeah, this is also the IKV-91, and so is this. So it's a little bit confusing, but you can tell it's obviously supposed to be a tank destroyer, which is open-topped, very similar to a bunch that we have in the game. Then we have this, the Scioto. Now, the Scioto at least seems to be a pretty standard PT boat. It has what looks like a Bofors or a 40mm on the front and a 40 on the back to go bang bang, similar to some of the other ships that we have in the British tech tree, like the dark class machines, and I'm guessing maybe it has torpedoes. I don't know, it's hard to tell sometimes. Once again, we'll be doing more of a deep dive into these vehicles as we go along. This just gives you a general outlook into what these vehicles are. What is also interesting is the Scioto. So the Scioto actually means arrow or lightning in Italy, and it actually refers to 3 different machines. You've got a cruiser, you've got a destroyer, and you've got a patrol boat. So obviously this is the patrol boat version. I'll just zoom out so you can see the whole thing on the screen. Sorry, I didn't realise we were still zoomed in. Have you seen all of that? Hell yeah, you've seen all of that. And of course the big boy, there you go. That's how big of a machine it is. So that is to look forward to, including all of the other vehicles that are coming. I am pumped, to say the least, for the Swedish ground forces and also the Italian Navy. After doing a lot of reading about the Italian Navy, I am very happy that it's finally coming to the game. The next bit is players will also get newer jets and bigger ships, including battle cruisers. Big boys are coming to the game, and it's going to be interesting to see what they mean by newer jets, whether they mean more Vietnam era jets such as the Crusader, or stuff which is even more modern than that. And also, you know, it's really something which what is good about, you know, these announcements is it means that you can plan ahead. So if you want battle cruisers, you know, it's pretty obvious that certain nations are going to get them which had them. You know, Germany's probably going to get one, America's going to get one. So you can plan for these things which are coming in the future, which I do think is a good way forward. But the newer jets part, I am interested in. I am a little bit worried because of the meta of top tier right now, but we'll see how it goes, you know. Now, with everything fighting everything, anything is possible. We cannot disclose the specific dates or the release order of all these updates, basically because they're in development and plans may change because everything really depends on feedback of players, but you can see the scope of the vehicle lineups we're working on. And these are just a few examples. We have a lot more cool stuff in the works. So yeah, I would hope, personally, that the Swedish ground forces comes out ASAP, but obviously that would probably be a later year release, just like they normally do with ground vehicles. The Italian Navy as well. We saw the Japanese Navy being the second update of the year this year, so hopefully, you know, we can see them too. It's a bit easier to talk about vehicles than about other changes, like the UI UX improvements, new graphical and audio features, or new gameplay types, just because the latter can take much more time than initially expected. For example, upgrading the new audio engine that was done in 1.91 took more than a year in development, and you still had all those issues. That's kind of worrying. Or can be even closed before releasing to public, or after open dev tests by player feedback. Yeah, I can definitely attest to some of them. The next question is, what are your long-term future plans for War Thunder? Another banger of a question. Well done, whoever asked these questions. I'm incredibly impressed. The answer is, though we already have 1,500 plus vehicles in War Thunder, we are still a long way from covering all the interesting examples of military hardware produced in the 20th and 21st centuries. What we're trying to do is to put all of them into the game, if it makes sense gameplay-wise. Right now we are doing a lot of research and internal experiments to understand how and what to add next. We think that what will be the most noticeable will be the changes to naval force battles that we are planning to do next year. We're also working on improving the World War mode and other gameplay experiences based on feedback from our players. Hell yes! Right, so if you like, I mean, the naval forces enduring confrontation, I thought was really fun. I thought it was a lot more interesting than your standard naval battles. The only problem I had is when, you know, one team got capitulated and left because they got hammered so hard, the game would drag on. So hopefully that gets fixed. When it comes to World War mode, I thought the first season was fun. I made a critique video talking about the issues that I personally had and how to fix them. So if you want to go and see that video, please do. But overall, the experience was positive. Can't wait for season 2. And as they said, feedback from players is the most important thing. It's as simple as that. Just give your feedback, whether it's on the forums, whether it's on the Discord, whether it's in comment sections or the Reddit. It is always important to put your opinion out there. Never be afraid of expressing an opinion. Just don't. There's nothing to be afraid of. Will somebody attack you because of the opinion? Sometimes, but that's okay. That just means that people are listening and people are reading. Let's say you have a completely out there wackadoo opinion. That's also okay. It's fine, you know. It just is how it is when it comes to some stuff. Maybe you have the answer where everybody else is, you know, turning towards the shade, and that's okay. Just express yourself. That's one thing that I'm always interested in. People, giving their side, giving what they believe, and discussing it. I think that is the part of the War Thunder community which has fallen by the wayside in the last few years, which is why I'm personally trying to bring it back through stuff like the Tech Hub, from other places, such as other platforms, to just get people chatting, get people, instead of just playing the game, get people vocal about what they're interested in and what they want to see changed. I think that is incredibly important. The release of War Thunder on the new platforms could be big news for some of our players, though we cannot specify the timing or the list of those platforms due to NDAs. So my guess is stuff like Nintendo Switch. I have no idea how War Thunder would play on the Nintendo Switch, but it's interesting to think about. Could we please use screenshots from this century, sir? This one must be at least 5 years old at this point, or at least it feels like it. Just hit me up. I'll give you some. It'll be all right. And the next question is hilarious. And also for some reason this one isn't in blue, and I don't really know why. So the question is, Gaijin has tried its hand at esports. What did you learn? Or are you still exploring esports? The answer is, it would be very difficult to give you a short answer. This topic probably deserves a whole separate article to cover. We have experimented a lot and learned a lot of lessons. We're still learning and we're planning to try new things, so stay tuned in the news for that. That answer means nothing. It means absolutely nothing. And all I can say about this is rip Zerba. Rip Zerba. Unfortunate, dude. That's what happened. I'm not going to go into it, but yeah. Hopefully in the future we can have a chat about it. The next question is, can you talk about War Thunder's marketplace, in-game economy? How did you come up with the concept, and has it evolved as planned? So the answer is, War Thunder, like other free-to-play games, allows players to unlock new content for free by playing a lot, or to unlock it a bit faster with a premium account. There are also some premium-only vehicles. That is more or less the industry standard. Our marketplace is the feature that allows die-hard fans to sell the in-game content they earned while playing and use that internal currency to buy new content, including premium-only content. This gives both non-paying and paying users much more flexibility and allows each one of them to play at their own pace, have fun, and be happy. I agree with that. I personally think the market would be screwed if it wasn't player-driven. So if the prices were not player-driven, there would always be calls for bias when it comes to specific parts of the markets. But because that it is completely player-driven, meaning that the players set the prices themselves for all the content, the only thing that is constant is the keys for the boxes, which are, I believe, $2.49. Everything else is controlled by the player. Therefore, I think it's overall a good system. It pretty much means that if you want to blame somebody for the pricing, well, you can't blame Gaijin. You've got to blame the general community. And yes, we could have a long debate about supply and demand and all of this wonderful stuff, but at the end of the day, it is obviously a positive. This is a way that an individual who doesn't have a lot of money but has a lot of free time can play the game a lot and play stuff like the Warbond shop ideas, so get the box at the end of it and sell it for around about 8 to 10 Gaijin coins, which I think is generally how much it's worth, or keep it and sell it for a lot later on, or during the events they can just sell a bunch of stuff and buy, some of the premiums that they want off the Gaijin store. They could maybe put it into premium time, and therefore, it makes the experience a lot better for them. Another avenue where players are able to experience the game in a different way, and also an avenue which cannot be seen as exploitative because of the fact that it's player controlled, is only a positive. The only time it muddies the waters is with stuff like the Battlefield Engineer event, when it is incredibly obvious when certain parts of it are controlled because of the marketplace. And that is the bit I disagree with, and that is why when it comes to the marketplace, even though I've just sung its praises there, I'm always skeptical because of the supply aspect from Gaijin's point of view. It always worries me. It worries me a lot when it comes to stuff such as events that we've talked about in the past, where it was incredibly obvious that they were abusing the system. The next question is, user-generated content seems to have been a big hit. Are players earning real money from it? And where do you see it going in the future? Player-created maps? What? Or what? I suppose is how you're supposed to say that. Yes, players do earn real money by creating content for War Thunder. There are several aircraft made completely from scratch by our players and officially added to the game, which is fantastic. We pay a fixed amount of money for a full vehicle model, and anyone can try to do it using our publicly available SDK. The most popular type of user-generated content, though, is a vehicle skin. These skins are uploaded to our UGC server, service, War Thunder Live, of course, regularly by the users. We check them and add new high-quality user-made skins into the game with each content update. After this, we share the revenue we get from these skins with their creators. Yeah, it's as simple as that. It's a win-win scenario. Gaijin gets more content for the game. It's technically outsourcing for free. It's outsourcing with no upfront cost, because generally, if you pay a modeler to do something, you will have to give them a certain amount of money up front, and then maybe when the job is done, you give them the rest of the money, half and half or something similar to that. When it comes to this style of content, there is no upfront cost, and there is also no cost when it comes to buying it off of them. When it comes to the skins, obviously there is a cost for the models. But at that point, the reason why they're doing the flat rate is so you can't overall keep earning royalties from that stuff, which we saw with things like the HE219, where there was reports of the guy who made the HE219 making an insane amount of money when it comes to like the first week of sales. And I'll just try and find the article for you, because it's something that I personally didn't cover, just because I didn't see the point in it, but it is definitely something which was talked about. Here we go. So this is from VR Focus, www.vrfocus.com. And HE219 creator sees benefit of War Thunder's revenue share program. A player earned $5,000 by creating and sharing his own 3D model. So that's $5,000 that Daniel Yudintsev, or Joy Division, was able to make off his, off his amount when it came to the HE219, which is an insane amount of money, which is why they do a flat price now, just to make it easier on them buying models. So yeah, overall very good. The next question is, you have land, sea, and air vehicles. Is there a chance you would consider adding infantry? If not, and why? The answer, War Thunder is all about military vehicle simulation. Infantry would be tough to implement and balance properly without significantly changing War Thunder that our players already know and love. That's why we have another infantry-focused military action game in the pipeline, which is called Enlisted. We will have more details about Enlisted in the near future. You better, because, to be honest, there hasn't been a lot of news updates about Enlisted in a long time. And as a person who is interested in the project and really wants to, play it and give it a go, not knowing a lot about it means that, as I said before, having less information is only bad for the consumer. So it would be always better to have more information. The question is, before we move on to that point, I do have something interesting. So let's see if I can find this, because there was a interesting fact when it comes to armored warfare. So they actually have got a thing that they're adding, which is mechanized infantry, which is hopefully showing right here. And you can see right here, if we just zoom in a little bit, there we go. They're actually adding in mechanized infantry, which you can drop around the place with specific vehicles, and they can and will be able to, let's just try and get this one, maybe this one will show it a little bit better. They can do different jobs. So you can see here, this is what they're going to look like. You can either have an anti-tank squad, a mortar squad, or a sniper squad, and you can obviously tell what these things are going to do, right? So they're doing the IFV, dropping off an infantry squad idea, and being able to, being able to be used in the battlefield. And I think if War Thunder want to incorporate something similar to this, I think it'll be really cool to do. So yeah, that is just something to check out. Just type in Armored Warfare Mechanized Infantry, and hopefully you're able to find it. The next point is, what do you think infantry would bring to the table if you decided to go that route? These guys are really interested in the infantry element. The answer is obviously secondary armaments like machine guns and anti-personnel munitions would become more useful. Other than that, it's hard to guess, as a balance would be completely different with a lot of unknown variables, and it would be a different game. That's pretty much the reason we're not going to add infantry to War Thunder. Yeah, I think that's fair enough, It's whenever I've played a game like Postscriptum or Squad, I inherently see a problem with the infantry versus vehicle, meta, I suppose you'd call it. It's always either balanced too far in favor of an infantry member or too far in favor of the vehicle. I also see it in games like Call to Arms, the modern day Men of War. And I also see it in other areas of games, such as Postscriptum or Hell Let Loose, stuff like that. There is always a bunch of people who want to get into vehicles, but when it comes to being in the trenches as an infantry member, it generally isn't as fun as being in one of those. You even see it in stuff like Call of Duty as well, when it comes to the more arcadey style. So for me, having a situation where we don't have infantry in War Thunder, I think is, it would be kind of useless having it in-game, because I don't think there'll be a ton of people playing it. The question is, what have the developers learned the most about player behavior over the years that War Thunder has been released into the wild? Is there anything players have done that has surprised the team? These are some wonderful questions. I just want to say, well done to this lad. Well done to, let's get your name, Joseph Bradford. I am incredibly impressed with these questions. Really, really great questions. So the answer is, our community never stops surprising us. Yeah, you can say that again. War Thunder players are super creative. They love military vehicles and military history. So they express this love not only in the game or in other media like Reddit, but in real life as well. We've already mentioned that some of them are creating content for War Thunder, but there are fans doing amazing stuff online, like building paper models of War Thunder tanks. One of the areas of the Tech Hub Discord I don't really participate in, but really like looking at, is the hobby section, because we have a community of people who post the models that they make, when it comes to the vehicles that they create, when it even comes to the infantry, and sometimes we're seeing some Warhammer stuff as well, and I really like it. Like, model making for me, being a person who right now, because of the situation that I'm in, I'm going to get back into modeling in a few years, but at the moment, it's not a viable thing. So I am always amazed at what people are able to create in front, of my eyes on, in the hobby part. So yeah, I can definitely understand that. The most exciting thing our players regularly do is they show War Thunder to their grandparents that actually flew the real aircraft and operated the real armor represented in the game. Sometimes they even use a VR headset and the full-fledged simulator setup to help veterans feel those machines. This kind of activity is extremely good for everyone. It helps young people reconnect with their senior relatives, and it helps veterans to feel young again. It also improves the perception of the whole video game industry in the modern society that is still a bit afraid of these new kinds of entertainment. I completely agree with everything you've said there. I just hope that War Thunder gets a little bit better in VR, because if I'm quite honest, it makes me very nauseous. The next question is nearly as long as the answer, so that's never good. Do you envision a time in the future where players can create their own joint armies or countries and battle against other armies? What I mean is, could I bring my air force, you bring your ground force, and someone else brings their naval fleet, and we join up in the same battle against other players? The answer: we have something like that in World War mode, where some of the players command armies on a map, and others command specific vehicles during the battles between those armies. In this case, people who are good as pilots usually use aircraft, while good tankers take ground vehicles. This mode is divided into seasons. The first one was available this summer, and the next one will be available very soon, so there might be more features that you might like. So get ready, boys. Techies is coming. We're going to have a bit of fun in World War mode. The next question is: pretend you were to release War Thunder in today's current industry landscape. Would you still use Steam? And how vital do you think the Steam release has been to the success of War Thunder? Simple answer: no. No, we would probably not. We're not making much money there and getting a lot of new users from it. According to our data, more players of War Thunder switched to the Steam version than new players were brought by Steam to War Thunder. It was also impossible to effectively attract people directly to the Steam page, as we can't track leads. So supporting Steam as a platform is not particularly beneficial to us. Currently, we do it only for those users who have been with us for a long time and prefer to use this platform. We do try to support local players or loyal players as much as we can. It used to be better back in the day. We hope that this will change someday, but currently it looks like Valve is much more interested in working with big publishers of premium games and is not very interested in supporting free-to-play titles with games as a service model. There are almost no mandatory marketing tools. There are plenty of cool services such as matchmaking, leaderboards, CDN, cloud saves, achievements, authorization, etc. that do have a lot of value for premium single-player or multiplayer games, but not much for cross-platform online games, and yet Valve still takes a significant revenue share for such games as well. If you want an example of this, all you have to do is look at the deal that Steam has done right now with EA. And you will find the new Star Wars game plastered everywhere on Steam, and it is just something that I'm personally not really interested in as a game. I'm interested in watching Dogfly play it, but I'm not that interested in buying it. But that is a premium, fully fledged AAA game, and you can see it's taking center stage over everything. Where War Thunder, the free-to-play aspect is, kind of hard to find on the site, apart from a single tag which says free-to-play. So overall, I understand, the point. This is something we're not happy with. Valve's platform can be useful for players, and there are millions of happy users there, but Valve's policies, services, and tools basically work well for premium games only. They are focused on big titles from big publishers and/or small independent game developers of premium games. Features like matchmaking, cloud storage, achievements, CDN for updates, authorization, etc. can be very useful, but makes no sense for a cross-platform online game, as we had to create all these features in-house anyway, having launched the game on PC on our site a year before we could do it on Steam. Those days, Valve actually limited access to their store. Yeah, so they didn't, there wasn't just stuff or guff everywhere. The next part, as a free-to-play game that attracts users with performance marketing, we need tools that simply do not exist on Steam. So for us, and basically any cross-platform online free-to-play game, this is a platform, the real platform is PC after all, where you have to give a significant share of revenue for just launching your game from the Steam launcher. As for how important the launch on Steam was, well, that store had attracted some players to the game and still does, but numbers speak for themselves. The first day we launched the game on Steam, we got around 10,000 of players simultaneously online, according to Steam stats, while not more than 1,000 players growth in total peak number. While it was still noticeable, it turns out that it was mostly our already existing audience started using the Steam launcher. So, as I've talked about in the past, using Steam numbers for stuff, even though it gives you an okay metric, it isn't the overall picture when it comes to War Thunder, and that is laid out here. The last question is, how has the response been on console since it was released? Have you seen greater numbers there versus Steam, and how has the console development helped improve the PC release and vice versa? Yes, we have more new players enjoying the game on consoles than on Steam. The policies there are hard in some ways, especially cross-play policies, and there are also very limited marketing tools, but there are probably more potential players for our game, and with comparable consistent fixed hardware, which is actually better than your average PC. Usually porting a game to another platform improves overall code quality. The main challenge for the console version of War Thunder is UI. It is not easy to maintain UI and UX of a huge game with a diverse range of gameplay modes like War Thunder, good on all platforms, but this usually makes it better for all players in the end. Still much work to do here, and we're committed to it. And I'm happy to hear that. For me personally, it's been really interesting talking to a bunch of Xbox users and also PlayStation users and the issues they run into with War Thunder. And there is a lot of content that the console users don't have that we PC users take for granted. Stuff like, for Xbox at least, the World War mode, simulator battles, that's a large thing, the Gaijin market itself. There's a lot of parts of the game which, are just not open to. Stuff like user missions, certain custom battles, all of these things have to be taken into account when talking about consoles. So hopefully in the future, those issues, which are brought up in the past, do get solved or at least get better for the general community. Otherwise, or the general console community. Otherwise, it will just be very sad to see. But I just want to say, do you see what I mean? This is an amazing article. This is truly wonderful to read through. There's a lot of stuff here, talking about the future, talking about the problems that Gaijin have, talking about, the player-based stuff, all of this wonderful things when it comes to the game overall. And I'm just so happy that, they've decided to do this article. I'm incredibly, incredibly happy that we have this resource. So thank you to MMORPG for doing the interview. Well done by Joseph Bradford for these questions. They're absolutely wonderful. And also, look forward to some Swede boys, some Italians, and also some Chinese. I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time. I'd just like to thank Ambrosius McClellan, B. Young, Blackie, Daniel Stanton, Jay Wilt, John Ryman, Joseph Anders, Martinez, Moxie, Super Cacti, Yuyins Terry, Elove Goat, and Seductive Trashcan for supporting the channel.